Right.
All right, good evening. Welcome to the Board of Directors
Microphone.
meeting for June 2nd, or June 12th, excuse me, 2025. Well, could we get the roll, please?
Yes. Director Sailors,
Present.
Director Gould,
Present.
Director Stark, Director Weber,
Here.
Director Wood,
Here.
Director Clark,
Present.
Director Rice.
Present.
And for the record, Directors Costa and Jones are absent this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director Weber, would you lead us in the pledge?
Honor.
Pledge
of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Do our Metro Cable announcement. This meeting is being recorded. The recording will be cablecast on Metro Cable Channel 14. The recording will be closed captioned and video streamed at metro14live.saccounty.gov. Today's meeting will replay at 6 o'clock on Monday, June 16th, and again at 2 o'clock on Wednesday, June 18th on Metro Cable Channel 14. Once posted, the recording of this meeting can be viewed on demand at youtube.com/Metro Cable 14. Now is the opportunity for members of the public to discuss matters on or not on the agenda. Do we have any speakers?
I have no speaker cards. Does anybody wish to make a public comment? And for those of you online, use the raise your hand feature if you'd like to make a public comment. No response, no comments. Thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you. Moving on, we have consent items. Do we have any comment on the consent agenda?
No.
I'll take a motion.
I so
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Could you call the roll, please?
Yes, Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Gould,
Aye.
Director Stark,
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Rice,
Aye.
Director Weber,
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. The consent calendar is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to presentation items, Fire Marshal Amy Nygren on the 2025 fireworks season. Thank you. Welcome. Good evening.
Good evening, President Wood, Directors, Chief House, Amy Nygren, Fire Marshal for Community Risk Reduction Division. I am here tonight to present on a very exciting topic, fireworks. President Wood asked me to talk about what we've been doing with fireworks this season, where we're at and where we're going. So tonight I'm going to review our Regional Fireworks Task Force, some of our public safety messaging, what our fire inspectors are working on, as well as the plan for fire investigations. Our regional task force brings together many of our partner agencies in fire agencies, code enforcement, law enforcement, and our PIOs. Some new ones this year are Lincoln, Placer Hill, Forest Hill, South Placer. They've all asked to be part of our task force, and they joined us at our last meeting. Let's see. There we go. So far this year, we've had 2 meetings on the 23rd of April and May 20th, and one scheduled for June 24th. And our rolling topics are usually around public information, community outreach, code enforcement, and law enforcement activities. During the meeting this year, it really started talking about the enforcement piece. Drones are going to be the main focus this year for many jurisdictions. What it does is keep our people safe, safer than what we've seen in the past where we're driving around and being targeted by some of the illegal fireworks and chasing fireworks that we can't find. So this year, as well as last year, Metro Fire had our drone up, and this year we will have it again, as well as our partner agencies in Rancho Cordova, the Sheriff's Department, Citrus Heights. Elk Grove is very successful last year with their drone program, so we're going to continue that this year. Our public safety messaging, again, this year is fireworks, keep it safe, keep it legal. Many messaging and outreach areas. We're going to have information in our Metro Fire newsletter. Many social media posts will start happening right around mid-month to the end of the month. We will have some potentially Caltrans billboards up I-80, but 50, we've already got 2 secured. again, for some safety messaging and some of the fines that'll be enforced. I've been asked to be part of the Office of the State Fire Marshal press conference this year, so I'll be providing some safety messaging at that on July 1st, as well as our media segments and multiple different outlets from our public relations division. Every fireworks booth gets a lot of safety information and flyers, and we will be continuing that this year. For fire inspections, our booths are pretty much in line how the last couple of years have gone. We have 153 booths that we'll be inspecting starting on Saturday, the 28th at noon. A lot of booths to get through. It's actually a really exciting time. We enjoy the outreach with some of our booth operators that we see year after year. Again, you can see the sales. Some Citrus Heights is looking at next year actually reducing their sales timeframe on there, although no sales happen after July 4th at around 9 or 10 at night. And then discharge, a lot of the agencies have changed their timeframes from 10 p.m. at night or 9 p.m. or 11 at night until 9 in the morning. You can't use fireworks at all. So that's been a good change that has happened. Fireworks displays. We have several, as you can see there, starting on June 28th with the city of Citrus Heights. I think it's important for our community to know it's very safe to just leave it to the professionals. Go see a display somewhere, keep your family safe, enjoy it from a distance. We have not only within our jurisdiction, you have a display in Roseville, Cosumnes, West Sacramento, as well as up in Folsom at the rodeo. So lots of opportunities to leave it to the professionals. Our fire investigations, we are enhancing our staffing again this year. From the 3rd through the 6th, it's a little shift from last year, but where the 4th of July falls on a Friday, we've shifted that uptake, and then we'll have some inspectors assist with origin and cause when they get overwhelmed. We'll be able to help assist with some of those origin and cause investigations. And then just some important final information. We do have a drop-off location at this Rancho Cordova PD with the hours of operations from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And then just if any of our community members have illegal fireworks they want to report, there's some reporting mechanisms for them. And with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for the fire marshal?
Yes.
Correct.
Fire Marshal Nygren, just because of all the things that are going on, there's always a potential that this 4th of July could be a little bit more volatile than ones in the past. And I want to ensure that if we have one of our arson investigators, if there's a weapons discharge or a use of force, what is our plan as it pertains to that member, and making sure they are properly represented in that process. You may not have all of those answers. That may be a labor question or any other chief officer that can help. But do we have a plan for our members that are charged with a law enforcement duty as it pertains to fire to keep them safe and to keep them represented throughout the process?
It's not finalized yet, but the supervising investigator is working on the plan, not only for operations, but for those very instances. And we would have to bring in labor as well to make sure we're covering all bases.
I think the one that worries me the most is a weapons discharge. Are we training our people to respond exactly like the sheriff's department? The scene gets shut down, they bring representation in, and you can see Chief Wagaman starting to get up, and I'm okay with that. I want to make sure that our members, any of that stuff is the most unfortunate ever, but there's risk everywhere. And I want to know that Metro Fire is prepared to represent our members and the community in the best way possible.
As you can imagine, a officer involved shooting is a huge deal. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we have an MOU with the sheriff's department. We follow their processes and policies to a T when it comes to officer involved shootings. In fact, they are the lead investigating agency, 100%.
And Chief, our members, our investigators are trained to that policy, and they know how to respond and the things to do that they should do, quite frankly, to protect themselves in a situation that becomes administrative, and certainly an investigation, which for all intents and purposes is looking at it for liability and potentially criminality. I want to make sure our members know exactly what to do.
Yes, they are. And that's why we have trained investigators. That's why we have advanced officer training as well. That is also required for them to continue to conduct the services that they do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Rice. Any other comments, questions? Fire Marshal Nygren, I have one. You mentioned about the increased use of UAVs. Do you have any information about how successful their use was last year? We have prosecutions, any sort of tallies you can give?
For us, we had 6 social host violations that we put through on it. It was more difficult last year. It was our first year using it, and the drones do have some heat elements. We had very hot season last year, and so the battery life goes through a little bit faster. So it was just trying to work through some of those kinks. So we're going to try it again this year and see how that goes. It was very successful in Elk Grove in Consumnes. I don't have the exact numbers, but it was about $65,000 in social host violations that they collected down there. It is important to note that we do not collect social host here. That goes through the county, but we are using that component to assist with that plan.
Great. Thank you so much.
Good. Thank you.
All right, thanks. We'll move on to our action items. Our first one is adopt a resolution for capital improvement plan. Welcome. Good evening, Ms. Castleberry.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. All right, I am happy tonight to present our capital improvement plan for fiscal year 25-26 through fiscal year 29-30. As you know, the purpose of our CIP is to make sure that the physical infrastructure of the district is being planned and accounted for. So you can see here, it's part of our strategic planning process and directly feeds into our budgeting process, of course. The CIP is a coordinated effort across basically all divisions of the district. Division managers submit projects for consideration. Those are either 5-year projects because we look at a 5-year snapshot. So any project that is anticipated in the next 5 years gets submitted. And then for all of the projects that are projected for the next fiscal year, those projects are prioritized and considered for appropriations in our annual budget. So last time I was here, we made our first presentation to you in April on all of the projects that had been submitted. That reflected just a summary of everything that had been submitted at the time. And at that time, we had just finished our committee review. We were about to prepare the financing plan and get that off to executive staff for review alongside final budget. So since our last update in April, we did complete that process. We presented the proposed CIP to the Finance and Audit Committee on May 22nd, and we are bringing it to you now for your consideration and hopeful adoption. As is our practice every year, we will probably be submitting a revised CIP alongside final budget to account for any adjustments that need to be made between now and then. So you can expect to see that in September. Since we last presented on our total 5-year projection in April, there were only a few minor adjustments between categories, but generally speaking, the 5-year projected need is still holding at $350 million. And you can see here how that is broken down by project type. So new construction and expansion projects are the largest portion of funding, followed by apparatus and equipment, PPE, land acquisition, and facilities enhancement, repair, and replacement projects. We had 69 total projects submitted for consideration in fiscal year 25-26, totaling $165.4 million. to be spent over multiple fiscal years. 58 of those were new projects and 11 were carryover projects approved in a prior year CIP that are continuing on. They are either construction projects, which are just ongoing, or they're apparatus projects that, like, we've had things on order and we haven't received them yet. Of the 69 projects submitted for fiscal year 25-26, I think I went too fast on my slide. There we go. No, one more. $46 are being recommended for funding. So the requested appropriation for next fiscal year was 95.2 million. And the recommended appropriation for next year's budget is 109 million. Now, if you have a sharp eye, you may notice that 95 was requested, but we're proposing to fund 109. Why the discrepancy? That is because for apparatus projects, we are intending, because we know we have Measure O funding available for those projects, we are intending to front load 3 years worth of apparatus orders so that we can order 3 years worth in the next fiscal year, just given the long lead times. So we're sort of front loading the apparatus projects, which is why you will see that the recommended appropriation is more than actually what was requested. So carryover projects total about 46 million, new projects 33 million, and then you'll see that supplemental funding of 30 million. That's the year 2, 3 apparatus projects that we're gonna fold into this next year. So there are 11 carryover projects. As I said, 46 million. We've got a couple construction projects going, several apparatus and equipment projects that are already on order and in process, a land acquisition project that we're trying to finish up, and then we have 2 facilities repair projects that we are carrying forward to the new year. There are 35 new projects recommended for funding, totaling 63 million. You can see the breakdown here. And all of those project types under apparatus replacements, 90+ vehicles. All the ones listed there, those are the ones that we're front loading into year 1. So those have multiple years worth of vehicles that we plan to order in fiscal year 25-26. New construction, we have some expansion rebuild projects projected, stations 23, 61, and 112. Also station 42 relocation project at our Watt and Myrtle property. Some roof replacements and HVAC replacements, much needed. Those are life cycle replacements that have been on our list for quite a while. So those, we'll be tackling those. And then also some PPE projects, which we normally see on an annual basis. You will see here the total projects, 46, the recommended funding, as I stated, 109 million. This is the breakdown of how that spreads across our funds. So you'll see the largest amount, Measure O, 81.6 million projected for next year. 12.5 million will come from the I-Fund, the Development Impact Fee Fund for some of our construction projects. 12.8 million in our Special Projects Fund. That's to finish up Zinfandel, which will be complete by the end of the new fiscal year. 192,000 in Capital Facilities Fund projects and 2 million from the General Fund. The General Fund projects are non-capital projects, which is why they're budgeted in the General Fund. There were 23 unfunded projects with a total unfunded need of 14.9 million. You can see the spread here across the project types. And the unfunded projects were ranked as either tier 2 or tier 3 in our evaluation process. And the ranking was based on a variety of factors with funding source, timing, and staff capacity to execute the projects being driving factors in this year's evaluation, as you can imagine. There were some projects identified that we would like to fund with Measure O dollars. But there was some question about whether or not they may be eligible. So we have deferred their approval until we get our bond auditor on board, which is anticipated for later this summer. Once we get them to weigh in, it would be our intent to bring those projects back to the board for inclusion. And those projects are generally represented in this tier 2 category. So these are projects that we do want to fund with Measure O dollars. And then the tier 3 projects needed, those will be reconsidered in either a future fiscal year, resubmitted. And that's all I have for you tonight. Trying to keep it simple.
Thank
I'll
you.
take any questions that you have.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the detail, and the supplemental, the packet we got was also very well put together and very well detailed. So thank you for all that. Do we have any questions for Director Gould?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ma'am, can you go back? We can go back to that slide where the whole thing starts with a committee, and have you describe for me participants in that committee? It showed the timeline or the participants there.
Yep, there you go.
Can you describe in some detail? I mean, board review and approval, we kind of have an idea of what that is.
Sure.
I don't know who the executive team is that's reviewing that. But if you could share with me, who plays on this committee? What's their role? How inclusive is it? What stakeholders are involved? Because it seems to me it starts there. And the end result only happens because the committee is formulated and comes together. We've had some recent examples of where we're in bringing all the different stakeholders together, you get a pretty good end result. So could you just spend a little bit more time on that
Sure.
first box?
So our committee is actually defined by policy. So in our capital improvement program policy, it states that the members of the CIP committee are members of finance, procurement, and the planning and development division. And then we invite representatives who have multiple submitted projects, so that as we're talking about them, they can prioritize their own projects. So for example, fleet, we have Shay Purcell who came in as a participant. Most of the support service managers are represented because they are the ones that have the most number of projects submitted. So they can look at their own list of submitted projects and say, these are the ones that are more important than other ones because they have that subject matter expertise.
Okay, so we have a CIP committee policy.
Correct. We have a capital improvement program policy.
Right. You just described the players. I will take full heat that policy probably was generated in
a few years ago.
timeline that I may have been involved in. And I apologize for a glaring error in my part that I see that we need to readdress this policy is that the end user is not me. And the end user, in my mind, has very little input right now, according to policy. You've just described the players and the end user of a lot of this allocation for capital improvement, who will be sitting in those places, driving that apparatus, doing the business of our district, isn't present in that committee. And that's on me because I'm sure I had something to do with that and it's my fault. I would hope that we're able to go back to this policy and look at it and think of the end user in mind and have their input at the beginning so that whatever they're passionate about, whatever it is that they want to see put into this CIP it's articulated at that moment. Articulating it at the end, once we approve it and allocate it and all that, that's too late. So I apologize for not knowing that and having a policy that didn't include that group. So if I'm just asking my colleagues, if down the road we could have a policy conversation where we revisit the CIP committee.
I was going to ask the clerk if she could put that on or
Thank
speak
you.
with Director Costa.
Yeah,
There you
that's, I'm
Um,
sorry that happened. Thank you. ma'am.
That's
You
certainly
answered
something
my
we can
question.
revisit. Yeah, there's other edits we'd like to make to that policy as well. So it's a good time to refresh it. It's been, I think, 3 or 4 years since that policy went into effect. So, and it was the first time we did it. So it's certainly an opportunity to take a look at it.
Confident more now than ever that I was involved and I.
Are you able to see if we can get that on an agenda? Talk to Director Costa and see if we can get that on a policy agenda?
Sure, what policy?
It's the
Capital improvement
the
program.
CIP policy. Yeah, I'm sure you could speak to Ms. Castleberry and get that worked out. Any other comments or questions, Director Rice?
Just one, real quick, I'm looking at slide 102 and it shows a small amount out of the general fund, $2 million. Is there a reason why it's out of the general fund and not one of the other funds? And then what is that?
Yes, so for example, in our policy, we have some projects that are not considered capital assets, and therefore they would not come out of our capital facilities fund or Measure O or impact fee. They are, for example, PPE. So, you know, all the different components of a set of turnouts, that's not a capitalized thing, so it has to come out of the general fund.
Thank you.
Yep.
Got it.
There's a bunch of different ones like that.
And Director Stark?
I want to echo what you said, Grant. I was concerned, no. I had already talked to staff about this, making sure that we have end users
Yeah.
involved. It wasn't formally in the process. I've been working with them and talking to them,
Good.
and they are already working on that. For example, we talked about the Zinfandel project, how the next phase, we're going to build the first training building, and then we're going to have a year in between before the next components are put together. And I've been speaking with Jeff and the staff there about making sure that in that interim year, when we do the next phase, that we get people that are going to be the end users, the training division people, the EMS people, the people at the individual firehouses. And that's why I think it's important, it sort of echoes where we're going, having the Measure O committee to make sure that we're involved in that and then bring them in. And then we can also do a policy
Excellent.
adjustment.
Any other comments, questions? Can you do one thing though, and just for anyone who's looking at this or listening to this, and they might have seen that slide that said we're going to get 90 vehicles. Could you explain the benefits of that? Or I don't know if Mr. Purcell, I've spoken with him about why that's a good idea. They've put him on the spot, but if you guys could explain why that number is what it is.
Well, 90 vehicles are either already past their useful life or will be past their useful life in the next 3 years. So if you want us to be able to show up at your house when you call 911, we need to make sure we have these vehicles ready and available without impacting our fleet division with major maintenance, constant maintenance problems.
More so I was concerned about the benefit of getting them or putting them all in a front load. Why are we going for 90 and not 20 or 30 at a time is what I was.
Oh, okay. So 90 is just the total across all vehicle types that are needed in the next 3 years. So some of those are just needed immediately next year. Some portion of those are not needed for 3 years. However, they have long lead times. So if we need them in 3 years, we need to be able to order them now so that we have a chance of getting them when we actually need them.
And ordering them in that sense, like if we go to an engine manufacturer and we want to get 15 engines, we have a different.
We have
buying
leverage
power.
in that contracting relationship to be able to get some benefits in delivery timelines and hopefully some pricing benefits as well.
Thank you. That's
Yep.
Chief.
Any other questions on that? I might be able to help, but I just want to reinforce, yes, there can be a very significant cost savings in bulk ordering. So that's one of the things that we're doing. Also, I think the public should know that we're not going to have 93 plus vehicles showing up at the same time. The district would be buried. It takes a lot of work to get equipment on the street, and there would be a staggered arrival. So just, we are ordering this amount of equipment within this next fiscal year. It will be staggered over the next several years on its actual arrival.
Thank
Yeah,
you so
the
much.
lead times on the vehicles range from 12 months to 4 years. So there's a wide range.
Outstanding. And we do get the benefit of that purchasing power now.
Yes.
Great. Thanks so much. Any other comments or questions for Ms. Castleberry? We do have a motion to adopt a resolution,
Second.
or
No,
I need
we
to
need a
get a
motion.
motion.
Now you need a second.
Now I need a second.
Second.
I've got the motion in a second. Would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Gould,
Aye.
Director Stark.
Aye.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Rice,
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
Director Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you so much. We'll move on to our next action item. It's resolutions for revisions to the fiscal year budget. Good evening, Mr. O'Toole.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, Fire Chief House, colleagues, members of the public. Yes, this is an action item. I'll be presenting changes to the current year 24-25 budget as last amended in the mid-year budget adopted in March. These changes are requested now to resolve unanticipated overages in the capital and labor budgets. The overages will be resolved by fund transfers and recognizing savings and revenues this current fiscal year. The overages pertain to three areas. First, $300,000 charge from Sacramento County for their property tax administration system. It's an IT project. They tell us the amount, we built that in the budget. The amount went over and now they need more. There's also an additional 1.7 million in labor expenses estimated, mainly related to higher than anticipated leave payout costs for some separated employees, as well as fewer transitions from the Metro Medic program to the firefighter ranks where they could be safer funded. There's also a $1.3 million transfer to the Capital Facilities Fund proposed, which would pay for capital equipment that would be reimbursed by Measure O when the proceeds of Measure O arrive on an anticipated date of July 2nd. So it's basically taking out the financing piece and just paying for with Measure O with savings of approximately $50,000 with not having to do the financing. As mentioned, these costs will be paid in part by transferring account savings, recognizing also a $317,000 federal reimbursement we just received for 2021 COVID expenditures and anticipated EMS revenues. After the Measure O reimbursement, there will be no effect on the general fund reserve. We will end the year as we thought we would at the mid-year. And then this is an action item. My recommendation is to approve the two resolutions.
No, that's, yeah.
Just the.
We have
There's
adopt
two.
resolutions.
Just the
Yes.
action item.
We have Fund 212A and Fund 212D.
Okay, we have to take the funds separately, so I'll need a motion for 212A.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I got a motion and a second. Can we get the roll, please?
Yes, Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Gould.
Aye.
Director Stark.
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Rice.
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. We'll move on. I need to get a motion for Fund 212B, please.
I'll make the motion, please.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Can we get the roll, please?
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Director Gould,
Aye.
Director Stark.
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Rice.
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much on that one. We'll keep you there and talk about item number 3, the resolutions for the 25-26 preliminary budget.
Very well. Okay, great. The slide just came up. I will move things along. Let's see. Tonight I'll present a preliminary budget for fiscal year 25-26. What you'll hear tonight is that a general fund transfer from the reserve is again anticipated. The general fund reserve will dip below 10%. The district will fund 10 positions, including positions associated with Measure O and the service delivery plan. and must also address rising pension costs, slower growing EMS and property tax revenues, and persistently high constant staffing expenses. The district is not alone in this budget dilemma, as I think we're all aware and seeing as other localities nearby are adopting their budgets. City of Oakland has an $89 million shortfall, San Francisco, 274. The budget that the city just passed, City of Sacramento just passed, close to $62 million shortfall, and they anticipate multiple years of shortfalls. Sacramento County also reported a 26 million shortfall in their federal healthcare funding cuts. So a little bit of context as we take this on. There we go. Okay. The agenda for tonight is going to be, first we'll look at the budget as a whole, starting with fund balance, revenues, expenditures, and transfers, and the ending fund balance for each fund. Next, we'll focus on the general fund with the revenues and expenditures. We'll take some time to look at capital outlay summary, which will include some Measure O information. And then we'll let the long-term forecast, it's a 5-year forecast from 25-26 to 29-30, and then a summary and of course your questions. Okay, so this slide, familiar slide, is our budget overview slide. It answers the common questions of how big is Metro Fire's budget and what reserves do we have. So the changes between mid-year and preliminary budget are in the 2 top boxes. You can see the columns mid-year and preliminary for both the general fund and then to the right, all funds. And then below the salmon colored, that's your reserve fund information. So the preliminary budget revenues are anticipated to be 336 million, expenditures slightly higher, slightly over 336.3 million. Comparing to mid-year, the general fund revenues rose 10.4 million and expenditures rose 8.3 million. Continuing down the general fund columns, the other financing sources, which is mainly the set of transfers in and out of the general fund, reduce the balances by 3.8 million. So that mainly is a transfer out to the capital facilities fund. So it's shown as an expenditure in the general fund. What this means is that revenues are less than expenditures and transfers out of the general fund are requested. That requires a $4.3 million transfer from the general fund reserve. For the last few years, your forecasts have shown property taxes, which is our main revenue source, would stop growing at the breakneck pace we saw a few years ago when it was 7.8% in 22-23 and then 5.7% in 23-24, around 5% this year, 5.0%, and next year is 4.2%. So still growing, but just at a slower rate. The mid-year budget projected a fiscal year 24-25 reserve of 11.8%. Still expect to reach that. But next year it's going to dip down to 9.8%, or that's what's forecast, as shown on the slide there. Now, of course, this is the preliminary budget process. There will be a final budget in 3 months where we were able to look at the savings from the prior year. And typically these numbers improve a little bit, but no promises. I just want to give that context there. Looking at the all funds column on the right there, the numbers have gotten quite a bit bigger. Our expenditures are approaching 500 million. Which is pretty astronomical for what we typically see. And that, of course, is Measure O, the Measure O pieces. So taken together, the changes in balance and fund, and when you take the reserves, the revenues, the expenditures, and the transfers in, the balance and the fund balance for all funds is 61.5 million. And this next slide will show all that a bit clear, more defined by the individual funds. So across the top, there are 8 funds listed from general fund all the way over. You see the Measure O debt service fund and the Measure O building fund. Those are 2 new funds, obviously. The columns at the left, you can see the beginning fund balance, what we expect to start the fiscal year with in a few weeks, and down, and then the revenues through the course of the year, the expenditures, other financing sources, numbers going, sums going in and out, and then the net change in fund balance, what that does. And then the bottom line is what your fund balance will look like after all of those changes. So we've covered the general fund, and already you can see the change in fund balance. There's the 4.3 million I mentioned that will come out of the reserve, reduce the reserve to 33.2. Capital facilities fund will end with a balance of 667,000. Lease properties fund will build up to 2.5 million. The grants fund maybe $3. And maybe that's just a demonstration of how carefully you finance budgets, but that's going to be about zero. The Development Impact Fees Fund, we are anticipating spending the balances in there on projects we'll discuss momentarily. The new debt service fund will have a balance there of nearly 16 million, and the Measurable Building Fund 75. The special projects, the Zinfandel project, that is, of course, that project we expect to fully spend everything in that fund next year. So now kind of narrowing our scope from all funds to the general fund. The projected revenues that's shown there is 335.8 million, which is a 3.2% increase. Property taxes will be 222.5 million, which is a $9 million increase over 24-25. This will be our 13th consecutive year of property tax growth and 15th consecutive year of total revenue growth since the Great Recession. Charges for services are estimated to be 107.4 million, which is up by 3.6 million. CRD fees are 6.4 million, which is a $500,000 increase. EMS medical fees, 50.4 million, a $2.4 million increase. I just want to pause there and recognize that I just told you that EMS fees are flattening. And now I'm saying there's increase. The reference there is, if you remember the mid-year budget, we reduced our EMS fees by 2.4 million. So basically we're saying from the budget before that, the final budget, it's still going to be 50.4 next year. Voluntary rate range program, 15.3 million, which is a $900,000 decrease. PPGMT, 25.5 million, 3.3 million over the current year. Net of the formerly IGT categorized revenue, that means the voluntary rate range program and the public provider ground emergency medical transport program, transfer to the general fund is 27.2. So just 500,000 increase over the mid-year budget. Importantly, if you're a close watcher of the PPGMT and we used to have the IGT fund, we're moved that all that, as I've said before, all of that IGT fund is moving into the general fund. So we're just putting that in the general fund and no longer using the IGT fund. It's still on a distinct line item in the budget where it can be tracked, but it's clear from this point forward to just put it all in the general fund. Okay, shifting from revenues to expenditures. So again, 336.3 million in expenditures, up by 8.2 million. The labor budget, which includes both the compensation and benefits, will reach 271.2 million, up 2.2% over the prior year. It adds the 10 positions, which are listed out there. 6 firefighters effective on May 1, 2026, 1 shop assistant, a helicopter mechanic, a warehouse supervisor, and a facilities tech. This is in addition, for context, this is in addition to the 8 positions we added at mid-year. So in a short time, we'll be adding 18 positions. The 25-26 cost of the 10 positions is 940,000 or 692,000 if you include the offsetting savings for the helicopter maintenance mechanic. Finally, the labor costs as a share of general fund revenues will be 80.6% in 25-26, which is a decline from what we had at mid-year. Service and supplies costs will be 60.2 million, a $2 million increase over the prior year after incorporating the IGT expenses that moved over to the general fund. Drilling down into the labor budget. Sorry. The compensation definitions first. Compensation, of course, is your wages, incentives, overtime, out-of-class pay, sick, and buybacks. That's what's included there. The wages portion of that will be $4.3 million higher. Constant staffing, like I said, will stay is a $2.6 million decline from the mid-year number, but still fairly elevated at 27 million. The incentive pays for EMT paramedic education are all $1.1 million higher. The employee behavioral wellness incentive is still there, at $3.1 million annually. And on the benefits side, total of 119 million. Some notable expenditures there, of course, noted there are CalPERS, which is $6.7 million, which is an 11.2% increase over prior year. So still pretty steep climbs there. We have increased employee medical costs of 1.8 million, nearly a 10% increase. And then workers' comp goes the other direction, a savings of 582,000 relative to what we had in the mid-year. Service and supplies really quickly, just some notables. The total is there 60.2 million. It's up 3.4%. Notables would be the district's liability and property insurance premiums, 457,000, computer services and licensing up 282,000, 370,000 in dispatch services mainly related to a new contract that was negotiated there, and a decrease in fire equipment servicing of 355,000. Here we go. Capital outlay summary. Let's see. So that capital outlay was just very well covered a moment ago. I'll just a few things to mention. I'm noting there are 111.9 million, including 82 million committed from Measure O. Some of the major projects that are in there are Station 67 build out at 7 million, some station expansions for 3.5 million, 25 ambulance replacements for 9.2 million, 2 ladder trucks, 6.3 million, 15 Type 1 engines, 19.7 million, and 8 Type 3 engine replacements, 5.4. Some other capital projects that are funded not from Measure O. So from the Development Impact Fees Fund is contributing to the grant line 220 acquisition, and the Special Projects Fund will be committing 12.8 million, the entire balance of the Zinfandel Training Center. And of course, there's breaking news. This is information that was not shared with, we didn't have when I went to the Finance and Audit Committee. I just wanted to add it because it is significant, and it's quite a commendation actually to the district. So our GO bonds were rated. We had Standard & Poor's and Fitch come in and meet with us and evaluate our financials, dig into our annual comprehensive financial report, ask a lot of questions. And Fitch gave us the AAA, which is the absolute highest you can get on your GO bond, better than the US government, better than many governments. So that's pretty exceptional. And then S&P gave us the AA, meaning we have a very strong capacity to meet financial commitment and differs from the highest rated obligors only in a small degree. So still pretty strong, very strong there from S&P. Incidentally, S&P last rated us in 2011. They gave us a AA then. So we haven't diminished at all since then, since the last time they came around. So anyway, just it's the significance of this is a couple things. It will allow us to get a better lower borrowing costs, and we can extend our dollars further. In addition, I think of interest to you, and I hope to share it with you after the meeting. It's a financial assessment on the district. It's a third party coming in and looking at your financial practices, as well as the demographics and the economics of the community. But I think I'd love to plan to share it with all of you so you can kind of see what they say as well. So the long-term forecast, let's see, incorporates the property tax consultant projections. Let's see. So the that's one of the 6 assumptions listed there. The forecast also incorporates current wage costs adjusted annually to reflect natural growth, such as step increases of 2% annually starting in 26-27. There's no compensation or staff increases assumed. There's most current PPGMT and VRP revenues are assumed with a 2% annual growth. Pension costs are increased at CalPERS' 5-year projection rate, so just borrowed their rates there. And the annual CPI is at 3.2% through forecast, so just kind of holding that flat. So those are the assumptions that went into this presentation. This next slide, you can, there we go. So this is your general fund reserve projection over 5 years. As you can see, the amount of general fund reserves, which is the blue column, which ties to the numbers at the left there, is climbing with the exception of 28, 29 when it takes a little dip. And then the green line, which ties to the percentages at the right, is where your reserve would be. So at the far left in 25, 26, we'd be slightly under that 10% where there was the 9%. And then expected to climb up over 10% over the 5-year period, subject to the assumptions I had on the last slide. Some of the big variables that we're going to watch closely would be changes to federal funding for Medicaid. I think everyone's interested in that. There hasn't been anything, I can't tie anything specific to which programs, whether our voluntary rate range program or our PPGMT program would be affected by that. It seems more likely the discussion falls on the VRP side, which is, about 8.6 million or so in 25, 26. So that is at some risk of reduction or erosion. watching that closely. And then, yeah, that's the biggest concern right now. There's also inflation, which, is affecting things at the margin as well. Finally, the goal here with this presentation and this estimate is to give you a balanced and carefully planned estimate, not letting the pendulum swing too far to the left or to the right. So you're just trying to steer the assumptions towards the middle. Let's see. With that, I'll take us to the summary slide. Thank you. So the district's preliminary budget, again, requires a general fund reserve transfer, 4.3 million, bringing the reserve down to 33.2. What that does percentage-wise is reduce the reserve from 11.8 in the mid-year budget down to 9.8. The general fund revenue growth is budgeted at 3.2% higher than the prior year. General fund expenditure growth is budgeted at 2.5% higher than prior year. And then lastly, the 5-year forecast shows that reserve borrowing likely ending and modest property tax growth will lead to a gradual increase in general fund reserve amount with little gain in reserve share, subject to significant changes in property tax trends and labor costs as the main drivers. Change the batteries. Okay. Thank you. So before the recommendation, I just want to give thanks to the entire finance team and everyone who works on the budget, the executive team, and the budget officers were really very active this process. So I appreciate those efforts as well. With that, includes my presentation, and subject to questions, I am recommending adoption of the resolutions for the preliminary budget.
Thank you so much, Mr. O'Toole. Like I mentioned to Ms. Castleberry, the supplemental materials we received were very detailed and thorough, and I appreciate the attention you and your staff put into that. So thank you. Do we have comments or questions for Mr. O'Toole?
Just real quick, Mr. O'Toole, thank you, Dave. I appreciate that you have stayed steady during this process and then really kept us not only informed, but on the right path on a use of reserve and how we're still in a good spot. We're going to end in a good spot, but it just, for me, your projection of this is a smart use. And we're not a savings account, but we also need to be prudent, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? We've got 10 resolutions before us. We need to take them one at a time. So if I can get a motion on 212A
So moved.
in a second.
Second.
We can get the roll on that one, please.
Yes, Director Sailors.
Aye.
Director Gould.
Aye.
Director Stark.
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Rice.
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
Director Wood. Thank
Aye.
you. Motion passes. Did it a little fast there.
All right, moving on. If I can get a motion on resolution for Fund 212D.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Can we get the roll, please?
Director Sailors.
Aye.
Director Gould.
Aye.
Director Stark.
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Rice.
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
We can get a motion for a resolution regarding Fund 212E.
So moved.
Second.
If I can get the roll, please.
Director Sailors.
Aye.
Director Gould.
Aye.
Director Stark.
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Rice.
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
If we can get a motion for a resolution regarding Resolution D regarding the Fund 212E.
So moved.
Second.
Director Sailors.
Aye.
Director Gould.
Aye.
Director Stark.
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Rice.
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. If I can get a resolution for Resolution E for the Grants Fund 212G, please.
Motion so moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Can we get the roll, please?
Director Sailors.
Aye.
Director Gould.
Aye.
Director Stark.
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Rice.
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And if we can get a resolution a motion for Resolution F, the Impact Fees Fund 212I.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Can we get the roll, please?
Yes, Director Sailors.
Aye.
Director Gould.
Aye.
Director Stark.
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Rice.
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Right. And can I get a motion for Resolution G, Lease Properties Fund 212L?
So moved.
Second.
If we can get the roll, please.
Director Sailors.
Aye.
Director Gould.
Aye.
Director Stark.
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Rice.
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And if I can get a motion for Resolution H, this is regarding the Measure O Debt Service Fund 212N.
So moved.
Second.
We can get the roll, please.
Director Sailors.
Aye.
Director Gould.
Aye.
Director Stark.
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Rice.
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And moving on, if we can get Resolution I, a motion regarding the Measure O Building Fund 212O.
So moved.
Second.
We can get the roll, please.
Director Sailors.
Aye.
Director Gould.
Aye.
Director Stark.
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Rice.
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And finally, if we can get Resolution J, a motion regarding Special Projects Fund 212S.
So moved.
Second.
We can get the roll, please.
Director Sailors.
Aye.
Director Gould.
Aye.
Director Stark.
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Rice.
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right, moving on to our last action item. We had, I put this on here after talking to a couple of colleagues up here. We think it'd be a good idea if this board nominated or created an ad hoc committee to work with our Measure O team and our planning personnel to give them any advice or insight. We have, a number of us up here have some pretty extensive and detailed contacts. And so as challenges arise, they may need some assistance reaching out to people. And it'd be good to have three well-connected individuals to help them, is the theory behind this. So anyone else wants to add on to what I've said about this?
I'd like to. I asked that you bring this up also because I'm concerned that we want to support staff in moving Measure O forward in an expeditious manner and to use our connections with the community and other elected officials to try to help move it along, and then also seek input from the members, as we said, the folks who are going to be the end users of all of these projects. And so I'd like to move that we create an ad hoc committee for said.
Any other comments on that? Otherwise, I think I'd like to come up with a couple of people to serve on this. My thoughts are Director Stark. Like to Weber, yeah. And Director Clark, if you have the time and inclination to serve.
Absolutely.
Fully
Any-
support. I appreciate that, but I think two people on this board have, their Rolodexes are much deeper than mine. That would be either Director Rice and or Director Costa.
I would agree with you on both of those. Director Rice, are you interested or do you have the bandwidth for that?
I will make the bandwidth for that.
So if we can get a motion to have Director Rice, Director Clark, and Director Stark.
I will make that motion, please.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Can we get the roll, please?
Director Sailors.
Aye.
Director Gould.
Aye.
Director Stark.
Aye.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Rice.
Aye.
Director Weber.
Aye.
President Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you all. And thanks you guys for volunteering and stepping up on that. Put you on the spot here.
Please step forward.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to reports. I have nothing to report. Fire Chief, Chief House, good evening.
Good evening, directors, colleagues, members of the public. I want to acknowledge two of our members tonight that are in the Rancho Cordova Leadership Program. And we have been in that program, I believe, for 18 years, and we are the longest standing agency in that program. I think some of you past fire employees and directors know well about this and may have participated in this program. But tonight, Battalion Chief Ryan Pittman and Payroll Specialist Emily Brown are graduating from that program this year. So congratulations to them. I just wanted to acknowledge their success over there and thank Rancho Cordova for continuing that program. It's a very successful program in a needed field of leadership. So great conversations to be had. And then lastly, I was able to spend, I was hoping to spend 3 mornings out at live fire training with the Academy, but my schedule got overwhelmed the first 2 days. So I got to spend today out there for a few hours with the fire behavior cadre, the Academy drill cadre, and our recruits in this current class. And I just want to acknowledge our agency and the fire behavior cadre and our drill cadre and the training division, along with our new wellness division, because the level of instruction and some of our members on fire behavior cadre teach nationally. Their level of instruction to prepare our recruits to be the best firefighters of today's fire service is second to none. The fire dynamics, behavior, search, safety and survival, to add also that the care given to the wellness during live fire training was remarkable out there. They rearranged the schedule, first time, I believe, in our history, to allow our recruits to be in not only washed and laundered gear, but really non-contaminated gear and verified by our safety division. And Chief Peck, I know, was out there and had something to do with that. But Chief Peck, Chief Green, all your staff, what I witnessed out there today is remarkable. And we're on the right pathway to training our newest members of our agency coming on to be successful firefighters for the community we serve. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Do we have any comments or questions for the chief? Director Weber.
Yes, Chief, in the past, in your monthly reports, you were showing brownouts and mandatories. You know, the brownouts, both of subjects are very, very important to us up here. I know it's more work for Jill, and I'm sorry, but if you can include those in the future, that would be helpful for us to track as well.
I believe they are continued, sir. They are in our staffing document from.
I was talking about your report to us. That's.
Oh, in this report for the board?
No, the monthly report that you.
It is in there, sir.
Oh,
Yeah, it's in there. It's a document that Laura Kelly updates us on, and that gets forwarded to you every month.
Overlooked that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, she does a phenomenal job and keeps all of us aware on that. We get a daily report from our shift commanders. That's where she does all the tracking and provides that report to you. If there's any changes to that report, I'm open to that, obviously.
Any other comments or questions for the chief?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief. Operations report, AC Mike Johnson. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening, President Wood, Board of Directors, Fire Chief House, colleagues. Mike Johnson, Assistant Chief, assigned to B Shift as the shift commander. As part of the B Shift Commander Spotlight tonight, I would like to introduce and recognize one of our newest promoted captains. On June the 9th, we got to promote Captain Antonio Ramos. Come up. I'll have him come up here and introduce himself, as we like to do. Captain Ramos is assigned to Engine 108 on the B Shift, and we're excited to have him and to see all the great things he's going to do. So without further ado, Captain Ramos.
Good evening. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I'm excited. This is a big new challenge coming to a completely new area for me. I spent the majority of my area in Battalion 9 in the South Sacramento area. So I'm excited for the challenge, and thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome. Congratulations.
And a report.
Thank you so much, Chief. Appreciate it. Moving on to administrative report, Deputy Chief Fiorica.
Good evening, President Wood, members of the board, Chief House, colleagues and guests. Deputy Chief Joe Fiorica with your administration report, and I'm going to keep this pretty brief tonight. The big part that I want to remind everybody is that fire camp is coming up starting on June 17th. We will have 20 counselors and a camp of 80 young men and women that will be participating. And I just want to mention some of our sponsors that are helping out this camp this year. So Raising Cane's and Chicago Fire Pizza are both food sponsors this year. Our program sponsors are SMUD, Cal American Water, the Kiwanis Club of Citrus Heights, and we do have some individual sponsors as well that were left unnamed. And then some in-kind sponsors, Sunsplash, Capital City, CPR, the Roseville Fire Department, and the Firefighters Burn Institute. And that is the end of my report.
Outstanding. And all of 20 of those counselors are all volunteering their time, right?
That is correct.
Chief, we also have a change in location from Sierra.
I,
The final day, the 20th.
Final day,
oh,
yeah.
yes. I don't know where it is though. It's not in my report. I apologize.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
We'll get that out to you.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
make sure you have all that
I just
information.
thought we, yeah, we
Yeah.
put it out to parents.
Thank you
Other
so
questions?
much. Any
I just
comments?
found out about it today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any comments or questions for the chief? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Finally, Deputy Chief Wagaman, Support Services. No report. Moving on, firefighters local 522 report. Good evening,
Matt Cole.
Mr. Cole.
Good evening. I'm gonna try not to yell into this thing. Last time, it's been a minute since I've had the opportunity to provide the 522 report. So hello, board, fire chief, members, colleagues, public. First off, I want to share a little story that Ramos shared with me. Back before he was Captain Ramos, he was single role Ramos, as we called him back then at Station 23. And he had a little 3-year-old daughter. He was new to the agency. And I was fortunate enough to work with a fantastic crew who made sure that when he and his family came over for Christmas, even though they did not know us, we bought a little gift for his daughter. And apparently even at 3 years old, that stuck with her enough that just this last Christmas before he got promoted at 53, where he was celebrating with his crew, his daughter, who's now 11, said, I want to buy gifts for the little kids that are going to come.
Wow.
So she spent her money to buy gifts for the little kids that were going to come. And it's those little things that make our agency special and our group special. And I'm excited that Ramos is going to continue traditions like that. So he's not here for me to thank him for sharing that, but that did make my day and my evening. Last time I was up here, I guess I used my hands too much. I got a little bit passionate on whatever my presentation was, and a dear friend said it looked like I was casting spells on you all. So I'm gonna try to hold on to this podium here. As I stand, what's that?
Part Italian.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm gonna do my best. Because I do want to share with you a perspective that 522 has and some concerns that I'm hoping that we can work together to find resolutions on. So as a historian, well before I was the vice president of 522 in 2022, we all experienced COVID together. And as a newly promoted battalion chief, I was very concerned with brownouts and mandatories and the impact, not just on our community with reduced services, but on the men and women of this organization and their families. And we navigated that time, but that put some pieces in motion that then saw me with the honor and distinct privilege of representing the membership and trying to come up with solutions on how we would not continue to experience those things, because I still believe that the COVID pandemic exposed cracks in our system, because we're still, even to this day, doing many things like we did in the 90s and early 2000s. And we're not the only agency, and we are doing amazing things. That's not to take away from a lot of the progressive, positive things that you even heard about tonight. But when it comes to our recruiting and our deployment, we had to come together to come up with some more creative solutions. So at the time, our single row program was fragile. We were lucky to staff 2 ambulances. The program was hardly sustainable. It was very successful in finding people like Ramos to come into the organization, but keeping it staffed was a challenge. So 522 came to the table and made that a more sustainable position. We doubled the compensation associated with that, so there was a livable wage for the working men and women that were joining our organization, and we could recruit. In that, we looked at how not only could we continue to recruit people because the BLS folks that were knocking at the door, we couldn't bring enough of them in. We wanted to send people to paramedic school. 522 worked with CPF and the organization to create a partnership at CJAC, and we have 25 BLS providers today in the CJAC program. So that's a huge win. We worked together to work with County Board of Supervisors, and when Dr. Can came in, be able to deploy BLS ambulances. All of these things were because the bottom line is there's not enough ALS firefighters in the state currently to meet the demand from border to border. There's just not. We're not alone in this challenge. So in that, previous administrations wanted to recruit BLS firefighters. And 522 said, Though we could do that, that is not the minimum level of service that we offer on our first responders today. When Chief House and I went through the academy together, engines and trucks were BLS, and rightfully so, this board moved in a position where our first responders are all ALS because we believe in that level of care. So we were resistive to recruit BLS folks. We said, bring as many BLS folks in as you can, but let's bring them into what we now call the MMP rank. And if we have enough service providers, let's deploy BLS ambulances to also ensure that we have enough ambulances on the road to service our community. And in the event that a first responder might have to ride in, let's look at this squad model that's happening in Southern California for well over a decade now, so that we can keep our first responders ALS, we can keep as many on the road, we can manage the call volume. All of these things you've heard. I'm just trying to summarize what was a very successful ultimate collaboration to see medics transitioned from suppression to MMP, to get firefighters off of ambulances and put them on first responders so we could increase deployment and keep our companies open. It was working. And then we stopped. This board approved transitions. We did up to 5. And then operations and administration decided we were going to hold at that number. We have been asking for months for an update on why and what the plan is. Now, in negotiations, this board, who 522 negotiates with, said we wanted to expand the pool from 5 to 10%, and we agreed. We have never filled our pool to 10%, and we won't with this current academy. This academy has 9 recruits in it, and hopefully they will all be successful. We wish that for every single one of them, but that will not yield us a full pool. And we are appreciative that we have been increasing services. We could have not done that and filled the pool, but the community and our call volume and the demand on the men and women, that was the prudent thing. What we had asked for as we put this plan together is that we put all 4 wheels on the tire, on the car, I'm sorry, and that we not only increase services, but we transition ambulances in a responsible manner with a stable MMP program to be able to increase our services, staff our pool, manage our mandatories and our work-life balance for our men and women, as well as keep our companies open. The bottom line is there are very few folks in today's fire service, as I travel around, that want to work 72 hours a week. Many of our folks don't even want to work 56 hours a week. And fortunately, we have very generous accruals that sometimes they don't have to. But 72 hours, the days where people just wanted to stack overtime are gone. So we agree that we need pools and we need to fill them. But the challenge is, again, like I had pointed out, there are not enough ALS firefighters knocking on the door. So 5 of the last 7 days, we have browned out first responders. We have browned out engine companies and a squad. And we have done so with upstaffed MMPs on the roster. Every day we have browned out a company, there's been at least 1 ALS, if not 2, upstaffed MMPs, and in some days, 3 additional MMP ambulances on the road. So it is our firm position that it is time to revisit those transitions to ensure that we do not reduce the level of service to our community, so that we do not continue to impact our membership with mandatories. We also have components in our MOU where we will work firefighters out of class into the engineer and captain rank, but we won't do that if firefighters are already forced to be away from their family. And so without a full pool in the firefighter rank, we can't upgrade an engineer or a captain. Ramos himself, before he got promoted, there was a request to work him out of class, but there were 4 firefighters already mandatory. So why would it be fair to let that stuff roll downhill? Caught myself there. You're welcome. So again, there is some frustration. We have been asking for this update. I am not trying to come to you last minute. We are very concerned on what the rest of this summer is going to look like for the men and women that work here, and what that will have an impact on our response. And our ask is that, as you have done in the past, as electeds in your community, you support us as we push and work towards looking at a deployment model to answer all of the needs. Will we have to be creative? Yes. Will it be perfect? No. But we have multiple tools on the table, like I had mentioned, to include BLS deployments, the potential to fill pools, our ability to make transitions. And all these firefighter spots are still authorized, but we move funding around. It is a cost responsible model because we looked at labor expense and our MMPs actually are a more affordable workforce at that point in their career. So again, I'm sharing with you, this is a report just so that collectively you all hear this. I know I've had some piecemeal conversations, as had other electeds from 522. And our ask is that you support us as we continue to try to work with management to figure this out, because all of us take brownouts very serious. I know the fire chief does, I do, I know every one of you and all you in this room do, but we have to continue to think outside the box and work towards a better solution. And that concludes my report unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cole, or Chief Cole. Director Weber?
Yes, Chief. So you had mentioned the transition. So how many phases were there and where are we in implementing those phases?
So initially, because the MMP program was, Signal Oil at the time was fairly unstable, we wanted to transition in a responsible manner. We defined the transition as phases, just as steps along a roadmap. If you remember at the time, we had a number of changes in leadership from Harms to Haverty to then Chief House. The first transitions actually happened just as Chief House was coming in, I believe, or just a small time before. And then 2 additional were transitioned to a total of 5. So that was defined as phase 1. And we delayed the other 2 because of some staffing concerns, and we agreed to be responsible at the time. I was just transitioning sort of out of that VP role. So there were initially 3 phases that were put in front of you as various proposals. It was really the support that we needed and management needed from the board to say we do agree with this direction. There was never a defined end of that runway because we didn't know what it was going to take to increase services and keep our pool full. But there were multiple phases, but to answer your question, Director Weber, it was more out of just trying to be responsible for a tiered approach. I think what we perceive is address where we're going to go in the short term, project a little bit beyond that, pile on our recruitment, because we do have 9 in the academy now, and we do have mid-20s, it sounds like, upcoming for the fall, but that fall academy will not help us this summer. We need a more creative solution immediately, in our opinion. And then when we get there, we'll also work with Chief House. We've talked about trying to find creative ways to increase that 20 number. But history would tell us that with 25 in the process at this point for fall, we might see 12 out of the other side of that by the time they go through backgrounds and the academy and probation and whatnot. So the intent of rebuilding the MMP program and looking at the ability to bring BLS people in was about a more sustainable plan. There are BLS men and women who are knocking at the door. We have said, let's bring them, but let's put them in this program. Let's give them 2 days a week of experience. Let's send them to school, and then let's take the best of the best, like Ramos, and move him or her over into suppression. That's the model. That's what tools are on the table to include the BLS deployment if we have to.
And have you had any talks whatsoever about creating a pool for each rank? Because as you said, it runs down and the firefighters keep getting stuck with the multiple, probably at least 2 a week. Any talks on that or your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm quite sure that will come up at the negotiation table this year. That's an MOU bound item. As a labor group, we'll have to entertain that. What does work with, if we had a full pool of, let's say, 8 people per day in the firefighter rank with no assignment, that would at least allow us to fill some firefighter spots and then work a handful of people out of class. But I'm not here pretending that that's the number. Most of the labor leaders that I talk to up and down the state and even in other public safety entities like law enforcement are moving to a 1.2 staffing model where they have a 20% pool or 1.2 people for every vacancy they have. That is also an expense that we will have to figure out how to absorb and quantify.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments or questions? Director Gould?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Matt, really quickly, I think it's important to also understand the irony that this year we've spent a ton of money on wellness. And if there's one thing that's counterproductive to the wellness of our staff is being mandatory. It makes no sense to me. I would hope that all of us, labor, administration, the board, recognizes that mandatories are counterproductive to all the effort and energy we put into wellness. And anything and everything we have to do to support wellness by eliminating, not just reducing, but in my mind, eliminating mandatories is what we've got to prioritize here because we are shooting ourselves, no pun intended, but we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We do all this wellness work and then all of a sudden you got to call your wife and say, I'm not coming home. I've been mandatory for another day. And you guys know the catastrophe that is. So I'm a director that supports the complete annihilation of mandatories in this organization as a matter of practice, that we do everything in our power that when our labor staff know they're going home on a day, they go home. And that their families can count on that. We talk about wellness, and to my mind, we're adding so much stress to our men and women when they get mandatory that I'd love to see Metro Fire take a position that will not happen in this organization
So
to the best of our ability.
definitely appreciate the sentiment and the mission, and we hear that challenge, and we would love nothing more than to eradicate mandatory callbacks from our system as well. And I do think that creatively we could find plans for that. We are very fortunate to be a special district, and as the chief has said a number of times, come up with an idea hopefully on Monday and put it in by the following Monday. And so we are, again, right there with you. And I know you did a 48-hour, 24-hour ride along, and I called and I said, you can't.
48, a complete 48.
I
by
called
the
and
way.
I said, you can't go home today. You're mandatory. You got to ride along again. And your
Aye.
response was right where I would expect it to
Yeah,
be.
you can
But
have-
throughout the ranks, the captain engineer, the BC rank as well, like we have mandatories, but our captains, engineers, and our firefighters,
Yeah.
like when days gone by, mandatories were on holidays and one-off days. When they're every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, every day your phone rings on your 4-day, just the stress of knowing that is one thing. And then for the young men and women who pick that up, eventually they're going to burn out when they come in for every call. And so we have to do something. That is the charter, I think, for all of us. And we're just here asking for your continued support on that and helping us drive that forward, because we got to get people in the right seats effective immediately, in our opinion, to keep our companies open, or we will continue to have this conversation.
Director Rice? Just, Chief, when we did the first phase and went through the squad concept, and I know a bunch of it was to ultimately not have brownouts. And if there were other portions of that either got held or we moved past them, then I'm asleep at the wheel on it, because hearing there's brownouts, I mean, I want to know every day if there's company browned out in Division 7, I want to know it. I want to text every morning. If there was a two and a third phase to that the local has, that needs to be revised but sat down with in a not just a meaningful way with the administrative leadership, and put out a staffing plan that carries that forward, then we need to do that. We cannot do 5 and 6 companies closed a day. And last summer, if my memory serves me right, we were seeing those kind of numbers. I love people. I'm not up for caution. If you're a cautionary person, you're not my person. I like chances. And I like to take the chance and move forward. And if you're cautionary in any leadership position, you're not the right place for this organization. And right now, if we are closing companies because we don't have people in the right spots, or because we're sticking to whatever it is in a policy that we have that says we can do that, we're missing the boat. I don't want to hear about force multipliers. I don't want to hear response in force. I want to hear an engine, a truck, and the appropriate medic are on their way to my house or anybody in Division 7's house when 911 is called. And I don't want to hear that it's truck 106 because engine 106 is closed, or that engine 102 is closed. These are the important things, aside from the budget and the capital improvement plan that we did today. This is where the rubber meets the road. I don't want to hear fancy terms. I really don't. We didn't use them back in the day, and I can tell you this. When Citygate did the standard of coverage for Metro Fire, beginning with Chief Meddy, through Chief Sponable, through Chief Hinkie, the reason it was successful was because every single one of those chiefs said, we're not putting administrators in charge of that. We're putting line and local people in charge of it. So you saw one operational assistant chief, battalion chiefs, captains, you had engineers, and the system was designed from the ground level. It seems like we're getting away from that. You know, and some of the things that I'm hearing about what I thought the squad concept would be, I'm hearing things that are very much complicators. You know, we're all responsible adults. This board makes sure that the men and women are appropriately compensated, the best compensation, the best benefits, and all of it. And we only ask one thing in return: highly motivated, highly trained, and people that do the right thing every time. If we have companies that have restrictions on them, you can't go to this, you can't go to that, you can't go to this unless you check with me, we're doing it wrong. When I came here, when we merged as Metro Fire, our medics only went to medical calls. We changed that. We got them assigned to fire calls. And if there was a medical need at that fire, we had AMR come in. And we're getting away from the basics, it sounds like to me. My job isn't operational, but I'm sorry, I've spent more time here than anybody except Bob. And so it's near and dear. We need to start doing the right thing, and we need to be innovative, and we need to not talk about it. And I don't want to hear silly terms to describe what we do. It's a life and death business. Let's treat it as such. Let's staff it appropriately. Let's be innovative in how we staff. And it doesn't really matter if you come up with it, or you come up with it, or another command chief officer comes up with it. I don't care. Just have the people at my front door when the call comes in. So that's my 2 cents. I expect the local. Yeah, I'll talk louder. I expect the local and expect the fire administration to solve this problem and bring a reasonable staffing model and request to this board. We want to know. They're not calling you if somebody's closed. They're calling one of you, and they're calling me. No more brownouts. Fix it. And that's as simple as I can put it. Fix it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any other comments or questions? No. Thank you so much, Chief.
Have a good evening.
Appreciate it. All right, moving on to committee and delegate reports. There is no report from the executive committee. Comm Center JPA, Deputy Chief Fiorica. Welcome back.
Thank you. The Comm Center JPA Board last met on Tuesday, June 10th. During that meeting, the board approved the fiscal year 25-26 preliminary budget for the Comm Center. There was no other significant action taken, and the next meeting is scheduled for June 24th. Any questions?
Any comments, questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on to Finance and Audit Committee, Director Jones is not here, so I believe that would be Director Stark.
In our last committee meeting, we discussed the exact reports that we got tonight, and we approved. And our next meeting, I did not have that pulled up. Our next meeting is when?
June
Marty?
26th.
June 26th. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Director. Policy Committee, Director Costa is not here, so who's yours?
We had a meeting.
Director Sailors.
Thank you. The policy committee met this evening at 5:30, and we had 2 new policies that we heard from our Chief Financial Officer, Dave O'Toole. And we will be seeing those at the full board very soon. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much. Moving on to board member questions and comments. Start to the right with Director Sailors.
Thank you. I have no comments tonight.
Thank you, Director. Director Gold?
No comment.
Director Stark? Director Rice? Director Clark?
No comment.
Director Weber?
All right, I'm not going to be silent. I've got 2 matters I'd like to bring up. The first matter is I'm hearing rumors, and I'm sure the chief has heard these rumors as well, that the chief from not within Metro Fire, but the chief is on his way out, that we are looking to dismiss the chief. So I'm here to address the public, the members of Metro Fire family, and the chief to assure everybody that is the furthest saying of the truth I've ever heard. He's solid. This board supports him unanimously. So I just wanted to get that out there in the public. So if you hear it, you can say, no, the board said absolutely not. We support the chief, and that's the end of that one. The second item is, we would like to have discussions with the board for amending the chief's contract. No, not to fire him. But when we negotiated, Director Clark and the rest of the board, we had expressed interest in removing the 80 hours of admin time. And we had expressed, not removing, but reducing. And we expressed to the chief in his interview that we were going to be doing the same with deputy chiefs, assistant chiefs, and himself. I don't know how it got overlooked, but when we constructed this, we took away, I'm sure you're aware of this, but we took away all of his admin leave, not just the 40 hours. So I'd like to have a discussion to amend that contract and award him those 40 hours that all of his subordinates are getting. That's a conversation I'd like to have.
I have a comment on that if I can. I appreciate the acknowledgement. As a leader of this organization and as we see financial difficulties throughout the feds, the state, and local agencies, I'm going to decline that offer and take the lead in any mechanism to ever be fiscally responsible. So I can appreciate that comment, but as we look at other agencies and where we're strapped for, if that could help hire or fund any other position from our entry-level things to fix the brownouts, I don't want that. So I absolutely honor and respect those acknowledgements, but I respectfully decline that to be changed in my contract.
Thank you very much, Director. I have nothing, no comments, so we will take this opportunity to move into closed session. We have 3 items to address, and hopefully we will have every one of you that does not need to be here gone when we get. All right, we are back from closed session. Council Lauber, would you mind reporting out, please?
Yes, President Wood. On the closed session report out, item number 1 is Workers' Compensation Settlement Authority for a workers' compensation claim involving employee Stephen Johnson. The board voted unanimously to approve the settlement and to give authority to its third-party administrator to effectuate a settlement of that workers' compensation claim. On item number 2, conference with legal counsel, Bailey versus Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District, no reportable action was taken. The third item, conference with legal counsel, a claim under 910, subrogation claim filed by State Farm against Metro Fire. The board voted unanimously to deny that claim and to refer the matter to its insurance carrier. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next meeting will be June 26, 2025 at 6 o'clock, and we will see you all then. Thank you.